Good Tuesday afternoon, and thanks for joining us on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Lauren Lemanchek. New this afternoon, the top federal judge in Minnesota is ordering the head of Immigrations and Custom Enforcement, Todd Lyons, to court. Judge Patrick Schiltz says he wants Lyons in court this Friday to explain why he should not be held in contempt over detained immigrants not being given bond hearings in Minnesota. This comes after that same judge accused federal immigration authorities of failing to comply with, quote, dozens of court orders over the past few weeks. In his order, Judge Schiltz says this court has been extremely patient with respondents, even though respondents decided to send thousands of agents to Minnesota to detain aliens without making any provision for dealing with the hundreds of habeas petitions and other lawsuits that were sure to result. Today, Border Control Commander Greg Bovino is leaving Minnesota along with some federal agents. This is new video from overnight as crowds of protesters gathered at the Spring Hill Suites Hotel in Maple Grove, where they believed he was staying. They were pushed back by several law enforcement agencies. Border Czar Tom Homan is officially on the ground here in Minnesota now to take over immigration enforcement. This comes after President Trump had a, quote, productive conversation with Mayor Jacob Frey and Governor Tim Walz. Our Raya Katene's got a closer look at the message coming from leaders and why it's marking a shift in tone.
With Border Patrol Commander Greg Bovino leaving Minnesota and Border Czar Tom Homan expected to make his way here, Governor Tim Walz says a phone call with President Donald Trump on Monday was productive.
Whether it was morality or bad optics in poll numbers, whatever has happened here, there is a definite change of tone. There is definitely a more collaborative tone.
In a conversation with our news partner NPR News, Walz says the president agreed to do things differently while Homan is in town. Posting online, President Trump says he and Walz seem to be on the same wavelength during the call.
Everybody understands that we have to move in a different direction.
Hours after federal agents shot and killed Alex Preddy in South Minneapolis, Republican State Senator Zach Duckworth called for a tactical pause.
Take a knee, you reassess your tactics, how you're conducting business. Are you accomplishing the mission in the way that you would desire to be accomplishing the mission? And clearly that's not what was happening.
The senator, representing areas south of the Twin Cities, joins a growing number of Republicans who say they want to lower the temperature and make way for constructive conversations.
The real purpose of the letter was to kind of inspire and call for collaboration at all levels, federal, state, local.
In a letter addressed to several federal leaders on Monday, including Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, Duckworth calls for an independent and fair investigation into Preddy's shooting and a request for restraint and justification when using terms like domestic terrorist. He goes on to affirm his support for lawful immigration enforcement, but says Minnesotans rightfully expect the operations to respect constitutional protections and minimize unnecessary risk to civilians and officers.
And the other aspect of that, which I know our local law enforcement is really good at, and I think our federal partners can be too, is exercising prudent restraint.
Although he's not representing the agency in this conversation, Duckworth is a member of the National Guard. This is now the third time he's been deployed to address civil unrest in the state while serving as a state senator.
We don't have to do a 180 and completely abandon our efforts to enforce immigration law and target those that we really should be targeting, violent criminals who aren't here lawfully. But we need to do it in a way that's better, that's more targeted, and using tactics and methods that are much safer.
Well, Walz also says he spoke to President Trump about allowing state investigators to investigate Alex Preddy and Renee Good's killings. He says the president agreed to look into that. Right now, the Minnesota chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations and their partners are holding a rally at the state capitol in St. Paul. Organizers are demanding the arrest of federal officers who killed Minnesota residents Alex Preddy and Renee Good. KARE Minnesota says they're also calling for the removal of all ICE forces from the state. Right now, 3 major court hearings over the last 24 hours are impacting the immigration efforts in Minnesota. Let's break them down. First, an appeals court ruled yesterday that agents can continue to use tear gas and to detain protesters while an ACLU lawsuit plays out. The judge says the order to stop using chemical irritants can't go into effect unless the ACLU wins their lawsuit. Also yesterday, a judge heard both sides on a lawsuit filed by the BCA and Hennepin County Attorney's Office, trying to preserve evidence in the investigation into Alex Preddy's death. The feds argue, though, that they should lead the investigation since it was a federal assignment and that the BCA is trying to micromanage. Then, a judge is expected to make a decision soon in a lawsuit seeking to stop Operation Metro Surge altogether. The state says federal agents are violating Minnesota's state sovereignty. The Justice Department says Operation Metro Surge is enforcing federal law and is not a violation of the 10th Amendment. Right now, St. Cloud is moving forward with decisions on two dueling resolutions in response to ICE operations. After 2 hours of debate last night, the City Council passed a resolution 6-1 titled Reaffirming Support for a Just and Welcoming Community. It acknowledges contributions from all residents in the city. Council members, however, voted to delay the vote on a separate resolution affirming support for law enforcement and the rule of law. A man is recovering in the hospital this afternoon after his wife says he was chased by ICE in a vehicle and crashed. Sharon Yu has a closer look at his story.
This is the scene outside of the McDonough Community Center in St. Paul that left Christian Salamanca hospitalized. His car crushed, wedged between a sign and a telephone pole. His wife Nicole says it all started when Christian called with alarming news.
I am called again 11:15 and he said, "It's follow me, what I need to do." And I am saying, "You need coming here because I think so here is better for you."
With ICE on his trail, Christian drove to the community center. That's when Nicole says ICE rammed his car with theirs.
He need coming inside in the parking lot, and the ICE push my husband por la parte de atrás del carro. First push for the back, and the ICE push again with the one. Yeah.
Nicole says her husband got out of the car and ran inside the community center and hid.
My husband is, your eyes is broken, your back is broken too, your knee is broken too.
She says her husband, who is originally from Colombia, has a visa, a pending asylum case, and a work permit. She says he has no criminal history and does not know why ICE is after him.
I am so sad. I am so frustrated. I don't do nothing, only coming here for my kids. For my kids have a better life. My kids can grow in better here. But this situation is so hard for me. I am so scared.
Now, Christian is currently in the emergency room of a hospital. We reached out to ICE about the incident, but haven't heard back. Taking a live look now from our nation's capital, 3 days out from a potential government shutdown. And this afternoon, Senate Democrats say they're ready to pass multiple funding bills that do not include money for Homeland Security. This all comes after Democrats agreed to not vote for a DHS funding bill in the wake of Alex Preddy's death. Senator Amy Klobuchar says she cannot support the package unless Republicans agree to make changes around immigration enforcement.
We're going to need immigration enforcement in this country. We always have. And we need border control. That's a good thing. But the way they're doing it is completely out of hand. And that's why we should be able to use our vote to push for reforms and a complete overhaul of this agency.
Right now, the bill does not have the 60 votes it needs to pass. Still, Republicans say they're planning to hold a vote before Friday. Minnesota Secretary of State Steve Simon is speaking out, about the letter from AG Pam Bondi on the request for information on voter data. The Department of Justice is already suing the state for not releasing this information to them. Minnesota is one of 32 states refusing to turn over voter rolls. Texas and 10 other states did turn it over. Simon calls the demand an overreach and says it's illegal.
Order for the Department of Justice or others to get this kind of sensitive voter data on Minnesotans, they need to do at least two things. They need to say with particularity why they need this particular information. And number two, they need to say what they're going to do with it. How will it be stored? Who will it be shared with? How will it be secured? And they haven't done either of those things. So
Simon says the state has offered publicly available voter information, but the DOJ declined their offer. The next hearing for the DOJ lawsuit is March 3rd. Polls are open for voters in the East Metro to fill 2 seats in the State House. The first is in District 47A, which includes parts of Woodbury and Maplewood, after Amanda Hemmingson Yeager won election to the state Senate. DFLer Shelley Buck is the only candidate on the ballot since no Republicans are running. In St. Paul, voters will choose who will fill the District 64A seat, previously held by Kali Herr, who's now the city's mayor. DFL endorsed Meg Lugar-Nicolai is up against Republican Dan Walsh. Polls are open until 8 p.m. You can find your polling place on the Secretary of State's website. This afternoon, Hennepin healthcare officials say the Minneapolis hospital is in crisis mode, operating so deep in the red it's now laying people off and shuttering services. HCMC is a publicly funded hospital caring for people who don't have insurance or who rely on Medicaid, a program facing big cuts that's really impacting reimbursement rates. The hospital needs to cut at least $50 million right now and will start by laying off 100 employees and closing its chiropractic, acupuncture, and sleep services. It's also asking the legislature to approve repurposing tax money that was used to build Target Field to instead fund the hospital.
People that might come visit their relatives who are at the hospital, they might grab lunch, they might stay at a hospital, things like that. We might recoup some of that money, so it's not just Hennepin covering those costs.
The hospital says patients should keep their appointments until notified otherwise, as it plans to help them continue their care through referrals and other providers. Stick with us. We have more news and weather coming up after the break.